kind of tough to conduct a professional webinar here. So please mute your microphones at this time, and we'll move on. Thank you all for joining this morning. My name is Tom Ashley, and I'm CEO of NAIFA Florida. And we're so delighted to have you this morning on this Citizens webinar, this update. I know you're going to get a lot of good information this morning, and I'm anxious for you to hear the Citizens team today and talk about some of the things that they need to share with you. I think it's going to be a great time for you. We have others who are continuing to join the webinar at this moment, so we're going to give them just another moment or two to let everybody in. So stand by, and we'll be right back with you. Thank you. All right, it looks like everyone's in, and let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I would like to do is introduce to you the NAIFA Florida president, Jeff Chernoff. Jeff is the NAIFA Florida president, of course. And interestingly enough, not only is Jeff the NAIFA Florida president for 2023, but he's also the NAIFA Young Agent Team Leader of the Year for 2022. That's a national recognition. And we're very proud of the fact that our own state president here is being recognized nationally across the NAIFA platform for his work with young agents. Jeff's a 12-year leader in local, state, and national positions. He handles insurance investments with Insurance and Trust in Tampa. Obviously a resident of Tampa. He's very involved locally in civic and charitable organizations in the Tampa Bay area. So Jeff, talk about a few words of welcome from you this morning.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tom, for that introduction. As Tom said, my name is Jeff Chernoff, and I have the privilege of serving as the NAIFA Florida president this year. For those of you that are not familiar with NAIFA, we tend to focus on three particular areas: advocacy, advocating both in Tallahassee and in Washington, D.C., membership, and as it relates to membership benefits. As an example, with NAIFA Florida, if you are a member, there are opportunities to participate in coaching programs, as well as being able to take advantage of senior driving courses online, and being able to pass some of those discounts along to your clients, for those of you that work in the auto space, and just the opportunity to network and learn from like-minded individuals. We just finished up our day on the Hill in Tallahassee last week, and of course in the property space, NAIFA was very involved in a lot of the things that happened during special session as it relates to property, and then the upcoming tort reforms that were passed earlier in session. So if you are interested in joining NAIFA, I highly recommend it. It has made me a better professional, and it has made me a better leader and better salesperson. So I'm also a multi-line agent, like many of you on this call, and so couldn't say enough good things about NAIFA Florida. So Tom, that is what I would like to share. Thanks so much for the opportunity, and good luck everybody with today's Citizens webinar.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. Obviously, Jeff is between calls this morning. He advised me earlier that he would be calling from the car. So, Jeff, thank you for doing that this morning. We really appreciate it. And just before we get started, just a couple of reminders. First of all, please keep your microphones muted throughout this morning's webinar. I will be turning the controls over to the Citizens staff here in just a moment. And they'll be monitoring the chat feature. We encourage you to use the chat feature to ask questions. They're very good about making sure your questions or comments gets passed along to the presenter. So we're going to ask you to ask your questions that way rather than trying to ask them verbally. Just have a lot of folks on the webinar this morning, and it gets a little cumbersome with trying to ask the questions personally, but that'll be up to the staff. If they choose to do that, that'll be certainly up to them. So at this point, I'd like to introduce to you Carl Rockman. I think most of you know Carl. I mean, when you think of Citizens here in Florida, you think Carl Rockman or Marsha Watson, one of the two. You know, it's those are the big headliners, if you will. But Carl is Vice President of Agency and Market Services. Carl, we appreciate everything you do, you and your team there. And so I'm going to ask you to take it away, please, sir.
Hey, Tom, thank you so much. And thanks for the opportunity to speak to your members today about Citizens. We have a lot to cover with you. As Tom mentioned, I'm the Vice President of Agency and Market Services at Citizens. Have the pleasure of working with Tom and your association. And in my role, I'm accountable for the agent experience. So everything involving Citizens that relates to agents ends up with me at some level. I report right to our COO, who reports to our CEO. So anxious to get into a conversation with you today. Joining me for today's presentation, though, are two of our agency field managers, George Maynard and Jim Punday. They'll be joining me in just a second. These are two of 6 professional folks that we have made an investment in to make sure that Citizens is relating to you as you're used to being related to by a carrier. And we'll talk more about that as we go. On the next slide. I want to recognize our great partnership with NAIFA. We have a market accountability committee that meets 4 times a year. Lee Gordetsky is the NAIFA representative on the market accountability committee. Lee does a great job of keeping us informed on things that are on the agent's mind. And then also representing NAIFA, Eric Ponce, who a lot of you know. Eric is on our agent roundtable. Our agent roundtable meets regularly, provides Citizens leadership with direct feedback on what we need to do to make sure the agent experience is as good as it can be. We also like to use Eric as a sounding board for things that we have coming, new implementations, new changes. We use our agent roundtable effectively to make sure that we're doing the right things and communicating the right things in the right way if they're going to impact you or the customers we mutually serve. As I mentioned, George and Jim are part of a network of 6 professional folks that we have on staff. They're agency field managers. What do? They connect with agencies. They connect with new agencies. They connect with large agencies. They connect with agencies for any kind of advocacy that you might need with Citizens. They're experts in our technology, experts in our underwriting processes, virtually anything that you might need in terms of citizen support. This team can provide it. Okay, think of them as the marketing reps that you typically encounter with other carriers, but we don't market. Citizens is not in the game to grow. We are not aggressively trying to compete, and we want to stay out of the way of the private market. But as your Citizens relationships might grow, as your Citizens book might grow, it's important that we connect you in ways that you're used to being connected to. So you'll meet Jim and George today, but we'll leave this up for just a second. You can see we've got these folks aligned by county. If you haven't built a relationship with one of them yet, you may build a relationship with them very quickly as the market at least turns to Citizens temporarily. And obviously, as we work aggressively to move customers to the private market as conditions improve. Okay. At the top, I'd like to cover with you 3 important things that are happening in the environment. I want to make sure there's awareness around 3 big things, and then George and Jim will take you through some additional information. The first thing is I want to acknowledge that we had a situation recently where one of many of our print vendors failed to send some renewals, new business, and policy change documentation. We've responded to this exceedingly well. If you're an agent that was involved in this, we've sent you a list of customers where a renewal may not have been sent, a new business package, or a policy change may not have been sent. Renewal lists went out last week. We are obviously sending those renewal decks out as quickly as possible. We're giving customers additional time to pay. We regret the situation, but we have responded appropriately and are doing everything we can in this particular space. So if any of you had a situation where a customer may have gotten a late renewal or didn't get one at all, we acknowledge the situation. We are responding to that appropriately. You'll see a note in Policy Center if the policy was impacted. And obviously, we are going to do everything we can to push that information back out to the customers. Okay. On the second slide, we are going to update our Citizens public website and our agent portal. All right. This is going to happen on Monday. And when I say Citizens website update, I'm not talking about Policy Center, where you do all of the policy work, and I'm not talking about Clearinghouse. What I'm talking about is the public website, and the representation of the new public website, citizensfla.com, is presented here. And the agent portal that's behind it. I apologize. That's what you're looking at here, is the agent portal. So once you log in from the Citizens public website to the agent portal, this is the new cover page for the agent portal. We've made some modifications to it to make the wind-only eligibility icon a little bit more prominent. That is the #1 click on our agent portal, is wind-only eligibility, not surprising. But we also have a link to FAQs, a link to contact us, and then obviously a payment link on the agent portal. It's laid out differently. It's designed to be a bit more mobile friendly. You're going to get a communication on it later today. There's awareness bulletins on the portal, but Monday morning, it's going to have a different look and feel to it. Okay. So that's coming. We believe that once you see it, it's very intuitive, but we're going to send out the supporting communication later today, but wanted to take this opportunity to inform this great group that there'll be a change in the agent portal, but not a change to Policy Center, not a change to Clearinghouse. That's very, very important that we get that across. But Monday morning, the agent portal will have a different look and feel to it. Okay. And the last thing I want to bring up were the legislative changes. A lot of you were tracking what happened in Tallahassee recently. Senate Bill 2A did make some significant changes to the marketplace in terms of one-way attorney fees and AOB, but I wanted to hit the 5 big things that impacted citizens in Senate Bill 2A and make sure that you were aware and informed of what impact it might have on your agency and your citizens' customers, okay? The first thing that we're dealing with is flood insurance. I think that if you're dealing with citizens at any level, you're aware that effective April 1st, in special hazard zones, a flood policy is required if the citizens policy contains wind and they're in a special hazard flood zone. That's effective 4/1. We're already seeing new business with the flood attached. It's going to be effective on renewals July 1st. So if the customer doesn't have a flood policy by 7/1 and they renew after 7/1, the policy will not be able to continue. And we have some policies currently in a non-renewal status. There is a remedy. There is a process for you to update the policy to show us flood coverage. And obviously, if we can see that, we will either not non-renew or lift the non-renewal, and also effective 4/1 on new business. This is a public policy decision. This is a decision that was brought down because it's important that if consumers need citizens, that they be completely covered, not just for wind and for other perils, but for the peril of flood. And so this was a very important and critical decision to make sure the consumer is adequately protected. So hopefully those requirements are known to you. If you have any questions, we can take some of those in the chat. The clearinghouse. Right now, as policies go through the renewal clearinghouse, the new 20% relativity rule to rate is being applied to those renewals. What does that mean? If a carrier bids on that policy at renewal and the rate is within 20%, the citizens policy is not eligible to renew, all right? We're starting to see that grind in. A lot of you work with the clearinghouse. We have a few carriers out there, but as more join or as appetite increases, you could see an increase in non-renewal activity in the renewal clearinghouse as carriers make bids on those renewals that are within 20%, not just $1 as it was previously. So please keep your eye on your renewal clearinghouse because you could see some uptick there in offers being made to move to a private market. Depopulation. There was a change in Senate Bill 2A that changes the depopulation rules. Effective with our June assumption, okay, effective with June, if a carrier makes an offer within 20%, the customer cannot opt out. It's an important change. More to come. If you're involved in the June Depop, it will be impossible for you to miss the communication, impossible for you to miss the support we're going to bring, because we have to execute flawlessly, explaining this to consumers who might be conditioned to be able to opt out for various reasons. The new rule is if an offer is made within 20%, they're unable to opt out. We are very, very engaged in making sure that you can explain it appropriately. And if it does happen to a consumer, that they understand it. So watch your email. We will be reaching out to you if you're involved at any level with the June assumption because of this significant rule change. The last 2 things are coming effective Q4. secondary residence rating, and competitive rates. The high level on this is, if on secondary residences, we now have a statute that says citizens can uncap the rate if folks don't live in their home 9 months or more. Okay. Now, there's a lot to that, a lot of details to follow on how that's going to be applied and how it's going to be validated. But we do now have permission, subject to OIR approval, to go ahead and take the rate to a different level than the current rate. What that means is you'll have two rate levels, one for people that have and do live in their home more than 9 months and are residents, and those that don't. Okay, and the rate difference will be significant. More to follow on this. This is more of a heads up than anything you need to worry about happening right now, but watch, because we're going to be communicating the impact of this, what it means at new business and renewal, and what it means to you and your customers. But we do have the support to take citizens rate up for folks that aren't using their home as their primary residence. Very, very important. Or for investors who rent, if those renters aren't in that home long-term, 9 months or more, the new rate would apply. And then competitive rates, all that means is in certain situations where our rate indication is negative, we now have the support statutorily to not take those negative indications and to obviously elevate the rates. It goes without saying that our rate indications are well below what we're able to charge. We still have the glide path and capping. And one of the things that Citizens wants to do is get out of the way of the private market by charging appropriate rates actuarially. And right now we're not able to do that. And that's why you're seeing Citizens be more competitive than it really should be, given its mission. But as agency owners, if you have any significant amount of Citizens business, please be aware of these 5 changes that are, 1, in flight, and 2, that are coming. And if you have any questions about the impact on your book, any questions on how it impacts your agency operationally, let us know, because we're all about making sure that you can adapt to these changes appropriately and help the customers we mutually serve. Okay. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to George, and George is going to walk us through some additional information on the new flood requirement. So George, take it away.
Thanks, Carl. Good morning, everyone. As Carl said, my name is George Maynard, and I'm one of the 6 agency field managers here at Citizens. This morning, I'm going to review some breaking news as it primarily pertains to some public policy decisions coming out of Senate Bill 2A. Carl did give an overview of those changes, but I will add a little more meat to what he did say. I promised you that I will be speaking about flood, but not flooding you with a lot of details of this requirement. But I plan to only touch on some of the salient points. Now, following the conclusion of the recently held legislative session, the new flood rules stipulate that Citizens customers with wind coverage on their policies are required to have a flood policy and provide a signed flood affirmation form. These new rules will eventually affect most of our Citizen policyholders. Now let's look at who and when will be affected by this change. We will first talk about those who are in a special flood hazard area. For example, these areas might be identified by FEMA as either A or V. For those within a flood hazard area and who carry wind coverage on their Citizens policy, the new guidelines will be effective April 1, 2023, and for new business, and July 1, 2023 for renewals.
Hey, George.
Yeah, yes, Carl.
George, I hate to interrupt. We're getting a little feedback that your audio is a little bit hard to hear, a little bit dim. I'm not sure if there's an adjustment you could make quickly, or if we wanted to move to maybe Jim's stuff while you're adjusting. Any thoughts?
Or just speak louder too.
Are you hearing me better?
George, it's not optimal. It's a little echoey, a little distant.
Okay, let me try one other thing. Sorry about that. Can you hear me better now?
That sounds perfect to me.
Let's get through it, guys. Just everyone have big ears for George's piece. George, do the best you can to bring it loud. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we will talk about those who are outside of the special flood hazard area. For these policyholders, we will be requiring flood coverage in phases. We will identify the customer risk or needs for flood coverage based on their coverage A value. When their coverage A comes due according to our list on the screen in the green box, they will be required to have and prove that flood coverage is in place. What are the flood coverage requirements? If the risk meets the who and when listed in blue and green on the screen, the insured will need to do the following. Firstly, sign a flood affirmation form. This form indicates that the insured understands that their citizens policy does not cover the peril of flood, and that the insured affirms they will maintain flood coverage per the legislation. Secondly, they will maintain flood coverage in the following amounts. For dwellings, equal to or greater than citizens' separate coverages A and C limits. For a condo owner, equal to or greater than citizens' separate coverage A and C limits. Tenant contents, equal to or greater than citizens' coverage C limits. If the above limits are not available from NFIP, the maximum of 250,000 coverage A and 100,000 coverage C will be acceptable. We will be requesting 2 new required documents in Policy Center when flood information is entered or updated. Firstly, a signed policyholder affirmation regarding flood insurance, and secondly, proof of flood coverage. And this proof can be either a copy of the flood application with proof of payment, or a copy of the flood policy declaration, or a copy of an ex-twin policy with the flood endorsement. Now, we've got something that is hot off the press, and that is if a policyholder that is not in a special flood hazard area receives a non-renewal notice from Citizens solely due to the failure to submit proof of flood insurance, the notice of non-renewal will be rescinded and they will receive an offer to renew their policy. Next slide, please. As an organization, we take pride in ensuring that we provide the required amount of information whenever changes of this magnitude are made. The laws outlined in SB 2A have necessitated the need for new information to be made available to clarify the flood coverage changes. In that regard, we have stood up a webpage dedicated to all the new flood requirements. You can access this page by logging into citizensfla.com and accessing personal, then flood. On this webpage, we have all the new flood requirements listed in the center of the page. Along the right side, in the spotlight section, we have resources. Here you will find the Managing Your Citizens Renewals in Special Flood Zone job aid, which will help you understand the timeline and what is needed when. You will also find a link to a recording of the webinar we held pertaining to all things flood. Please review this webpage with your team members. Next slide, please. Clearinghouse operations. I think Carl spoke about this briefly, but I will touch a couple other points. When it comes to the clearinghouse, we have 2 main updates to share. Firstly, when we put a risk through the new renewal process in the clearinghouse, there will now be a 20% threshold that would deem a risk ineligible for renewal with Citizens. In the past, we had a threshold of equal to or less than for the other carrier offer to be eligible with Citizens. This new rule may result in more risk becoming ineligible for Citizens than you have seen in the past. We will continue to email you when you have policies that fall into this category, so that you take prompt action and secure alternate coverage for your customers. Additionally, as Carl indicated, prior to this legislation being enacted, we allowed customers whose premium increased by more than 10% annually to come back to Citizens under the same requirements as if they had renewed with Citizens. The new registration eliminates this option, thus requiring the customer to meet the new business submission guidelines, including the 20% rule to be deemed eligible for coverage with Citizens. Next slide, please. The third change that we are dealing with as a result of Senate Bill 2A has to do with depopulation. And the 20% rule applies to offers of assumption from our June 2023 depopulation going forward. This is a major change coming soon. The changes to the personal lines depopulation program are designed to enhance our eligibility requirements and at the same time determine if the policy meets the guidelines to remain with Citizens when a takeout company estimated premium offer falls within 20% of the estimated Citizens renewal premium. Under this new dispensation, the policyholder will not have the option to elect to remain with Citizens, but will be assigned to one of the takeout companies that made them an offer and render them ineligible to renew with Citizens. Some important points to note. We will be updating the letters to the policyholder when they are selected for an assumption. We are looking to update the data file we send to the agency principal to indicate which policies are not eligible to stay with Citizens due to the offer from the takeout company being within 20% of the estimated Citizens premium. We are working on modifying the agent desktop activities to better align with this new guideline. We will conduct a robust webinar on the population changes as we get closer to the first assumption under the new guidelines. Stay tuned for a training bulletin to announce the training. Next slide, please. The hottest topic in the insurance news circuit right now is to replace or not to replace the roof. As a newscaster, my job is to provide you with the truth as to Citizens' policy on roof replacement eligibility. If you are submitting a new risk with a roof that has been replaced, you will need one of the following: a finalized roof permit or a paid in full roofing contract, work order, or receipt. If you're using a permit, the permit will need to include all of the following information: the work done was a re-roof or roof replacement, date that the work was finalized or completed, the site address matches the property address of the policy, the material used to replace the roof if this is not on the permit, photos of the material are acceptable. If you are using a paid in full roofing contract, work order, or receipt, it will need to include all of the following: the entire roof was replaced, the date of the replacement, the job was paid in full, it was completed by a licensed general residential building or roofing contractor, and it must be in the company letterhead, and there should be photographs of the roof. Next slide, please. Now, as we continue in the vein of roof eligibility, if you are making a new submission with a roof that has not been replaced or proof of roof replacement is unavailable, you will need one of the following: a complete roof inspection form, a 4-point inspection form, or a statement from a licensed roof contractor. If you do not have proof of replacement and are using either a roof certification form, a 4-point inspection, or a statement from a licensed roofing contractor, your proof must indicate at least 3 years remaining useful life to include the following: the property address, be dated within the last year, estimated age of main and secondary roof, remaining useful life of main and secondary roof, overall condition of main and secondary roof, be completed by a licensed general residential building or roofing contractor, and of course, photographs to accompany your submission. An important point to note is that Policy Center will determine if a risk will be submitted bound or unbound. The agent will not need to do anything. It will be based on how the roof information is entered. And let me show you what I mean. Next slide, please. And here you can see on the slide, if the roof remaining useful life is entered, the policy will automatically go unbound to the underwriter. Remember, do not collect payment on these until they're reviewed and approved by the underwriter. If an acceptable year of last update is entered for the roofing, the policy will be eligible for binding. You cannot enter both. The system will not allow you to. You will only be able to enter one or the other. If no year of roof update is listed, the year built will be considered the year of last update for the roof. Important to note that if the dwelling is under age 25 or 50 years, then do not enter remaining useful life or year of last update roofing unless you have acceptable proof, as it will be required. Next slide, please. And I think at this point we are going to take some questions via the chat if they're not there. Christiane, have you?
Yes, thank you, George. We did have a few questions. First question on the flood information you had shared earlier. Are you able to share some additional information on how the new flood rules apply to renters and condos above the first floor?
At this point, in terms of condos above the first floor for coverage A, we have taken a decision that we will accept the condos flood policy as proof of coverage for coverage A. In terms of coverage C, the unit owner is still required to have a flood policy for coverage C.
Thank you. Another question we received, it's what if the client cannot, I think it's afford flood or get flood in effect?
Unfortunately, we will be unable to do anything. That policy will be set up for cancellation.
Okay, thank
we
you.
are required to follow the rules, and the rules are very clear as to what we are required to do.
Thank you. And there's one other question when Carl was speaking to the 20% depopulation rule, and it's, do you expect that the clearinghouse rates will start reducing with this new rule?
Carl, can you take that?
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah, let me take that, George. We certainly would like to encourage carriers to participate in the clearinghouse and make those renewal offers. And as I mentioned, the rates on Citizens will continue to go up. We are going to file for another rate increase for next year. Also, that secondary residence rate that I mentioned could bring Citizens rates up a bit. I think it's a matter of the carrier rates are here, our rates are here. We sure would like to meet in the middle at some point, if possible, particularly maybe with a new entrant who doesn't have all of the liability associated with the old litigation environment. We're optimistic, and we need to be. I think the solution is for the renewal clearinghouse, current carriers with more aggressive pricing, a new entrant particularly wanting to bid on that doesn't have the development that's able to offer more aggressive pricing, and then the combination of Citizens rates going up because they need to, given our current actuarial indications. So I would just say stay tuned. I know a lot of you depend on the clearinghouse for additional marketing, and I would just say, please stay tuned as the new 20% rule grinds in.
Thank you. We had a follow-up on flood in the condos. If a flood is defined as rising water, is it reasonable to assume higher floor tenants can expect a flood scenario?
I'll take it. Let me take it. Theoretically, no, but right now the statute is written in a way that it is required. Okay, I would just ask everyone to please stay tuned. Tom, I know your association is actively involved in conversations relative to the statute, as they always are, well, from a political standpoint, correct?
Correct.
And guys, we're giving you the rules as they exist today, and you're governed by those rules. But I would just say stay tuned. Obviously, the condo piece and the flood piece is, you know, there's discussions, but I have no promises, nothing up my sleeve right now. The condo customer, regardless of the floor they're on, is going to be required to at least carry a contents policy for flood in order to qualify for Citizens.
And for those of you who are members of the association, each week during legislative session, you receive our session dispatch, which is the update of activity in the Florida legislature during session. Keep your eyes on that, if you will, for more information on this. Carl, is that fair?
Yeah, Tom, I think, again, as I mentioned, this is a public policy decision. Citizens is duty bound to implement that decision, and we're doing so. But as Tom mentioned, you know, obviously there's discussions on a lot of things, and I would just tell everyone here to just stay tuned and be aware should any change to that policy occur. We will communicate it effectively and make sure everyone's aware. But right now, any citizen's new business for a condo at any floor, at any level, is going to require at a minimum the contents piece to cover contents for flood.
All right, and that was it for questions right now. We will open it for questions again after the second half of the presentation.
Thank you, Christiane. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of my segment of the presentation. I will now turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Jim Punde.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Thank you. Another topic that we would like to refresh everybody on is new business eligibility. We introduced this topic late last year and have sent out an updated bulletin since on January 10th with some additional information and a link to eligibility matrix that'll help you determine which rule you're able to bring your customers to Citizens now. One of the main takeaways from this update is that the customers currently have coverage or a renewal offer. You're going to need to only be able to qualify them for Citizens coverage via that 20% rule, if that renewal or current policy, in addition to your other market meets the 20% rule. So we'll explore this a little bit more in the next screen. Next slide, please. So there are two rules when it comes to qualifying customers with Citizens. So rule number one, the applicant's unaware of any other offer of coverage from any authorized insurer. This rule is going to apply to customers with a new purchase, non-renewal or cancellation, or have a lapse in coverage. How to meet this rule? You'll still need to check on your other markets for coverages, either via your comparator or all of your private market carrier portals. If authors returned, you are now providing rule 2, 20%. If no other offers are returned, then you would be able to meet rule 1. Select option B in Policy Center. Documentation required, non-renewal, cancellation, or new purchase documents, and a screen print of your comparator showing no other offers or no comparative rate, or at least one declination from a carrier portal showing no other offers of coverage. So rule number 2, the premium for all other offers of coverage made by authorized insurers is more than 20% greater than the premium for comparable coverage from Citizens. This rule applies to customers who are shopping for a better premium and have an existing policy or renewal offer. How to meet this rule? You got to run your quote in comparator or with all other carrier portals. If no other offers come back, then you'll need to run a Citizens quote to compare to the existing policy renewal offer to determine if the 20% rule is met. If offers come back, we'll need to run all those offers plus the renewal existing policy against the Citizens quote to confirm that 20% rule has been met. If 20% rule is met in either of these scenarios, the risk may come to Citizens. Select option B in Policy Center. Documentation that you're going to be required to is going to be a renewal offer on the current policy, a screen print of your comparator, or at least one carrier offer showing that 20% rule is met, or at least one declination from your carrier portals, whichever one you have for your scenario. You'll notice in the chart on the screen that the customer shopping cannot be qualified under option A, no offers, as they have an offer in hand. Let's take a look at the matrix we created to help you determine what you'll need to do and when your customer may fall. Next slide, please. Using our FAQ, the frequently asked questions search, you can enter in answer ID number 4517, or you may enter keywords such as new business eligibility and select enter. You'll find the article titled Personal Lines New Business Eligibility Guide. Within this FAQ will be a link to the matrix. If you select the link, the matrix will open in a new window. Let's look at how to use this. Next slide. So using this matrix, you're first going to want to determine if your insured is an existing renewal in front of them, or if they do not, for any other reasons previously mentioned. You will then follow the path based on renewal or current offer or no existing coverage. In both scenarios, you'll need to quote this risk with your carriers or via the rater. If no offers come back, or if you're unable to sell the offers that you did receive, you'll need to run a Citizens quote. Compare the Citizens quote to other offers received and or a renewal offer the insured has in hand. Based on your answers to these questions across the top of the matrix, you'll be able to see which action is allowed, or if you're unable to qualify the risk. If you are able to write the risk, the required documents will be listed in the last column. Next slide. This is on the assessments. We'll have assigned all appointed agents, LCRs, agency principals, or mandatory assessment awareness training module. It's a quick 15-minute course that we have created to assist agents on how our assessments work and how we apply them if we ever need to. This is designated to help you have a conversation about assessments with your customers when you sell new policies or when you have a policy selected for depopulation. Some important points here we want to make about this assessment module is that it was assigned back on March 10th. It's got to be completed by May 9th. The course is mandatory for appointed agents and agency principals, and if it's not completed by May 9th, we'll have to move forward toward suspension of the system access and non-renewal of your Citizens appointment. So please take the 15 minutes, complete the course. You'll find it engaging and very informative. Next slide. This slide is a know before you call. Now that you have somewhat familiar about the assessments, let's talk a little bit about what you should do or know before you call Citizens. We offer many resources that are bound to find exactly what you're looking for without ever actually having to get on the phone with the customer care center. I can walk you through some of these tiles here on the page. On the personal tile, you'll find that personal lines, underwriting manuals, personal lines forms, required document guides, product guides, rate changes by territory, maps, anything pertaining to the personal lines of Citizens. This also is where you're going to find where the underwriting processing times are housed, which we could talk about in a few slides. I think it's important to take a look at that. On the commercial tile, you'll find our commercial lines underwriting manuals. Anything you could possibly think of regarding commercial lines, resource guides. On the training tile, you're going to find your job aids, your live education offerings, on-demand education, webinar recordings, as well as anything, regarding Citizens Essentials curriculum, performance standards, another key topic on there. If you have any issues with binding violations, late submissions. On the programs tab, you're going to find details and resources surrounding current programs, including clearinghouse, depop, inspections, managed repair program, as well as sinkhole. On your news tab there, you're going to find all your agent bulletins, both for personal and commercial lines, as well as the training bulletins, any binding alerts, agent updates. You can also access our Agent Advantage blog. through this tile, which will give you direct links to common resources that were mentioned in the articles. On the My Agency tab, this is going to be able to access the agent and agency agreements, as well as your popular forms such as your W-9, your EFT forms for commissions, agent or record transfer forms. In addition, you're going to find your commission schedule and your eligibility company matrix on there as well. Now, if you're not sure where to look for something, or you're short on time, you don't want to make too many clicks, you can always utilize the search feature in the top right-hand corner there on the screen. You can find it in short searches, and results will list out the times that you might be finding, what you're looking for through that. And that'll just kind of do like an overview.
Yeah. Hey, Jim.
Yes.
Real quick, just a quick commercial too. As we're going through this website, a reminder that this is going to change on Monday. So what you're looking at here is a graphic that represents the old page. The topics like personal and programs and my news and training, you will see those words on the new page. It'll just have a little different look and feel. The content will remain identical to what Jim presented, but for anyone watching this post-event or trying to reference this later, we just want to make sure that we're acknowledging that this website on Monday will look a little different, but the content will be the same.
Good point.
Thanks.
Next slide. This is underwriting escalation calls. So while you may be told 24, 48 hours at the time of the call based on routing or an underwriting supervisor callback, it can take up to 5 business days. So please allow some time for that callback before you escalate an item. The underwriters are extremely busy right now, obviously, with everything that's going on in the marketplace. Just, give them that time to take, the opportunity to get that callback first. Processing times, we process all our submissions in the order that they are received. So please allow time for that processing. We can always escalate urgent inquiries outside of the average processing time frame if one of the following conditions are met. There's a pending cancellation effective within the next 2 calendar days. You got a pending non-renewal effective within 2 business calendar days, or you got an unbalanced submission with a financial closing within 2 calendar days. A document that's already been processed by underwriting, but maybe wasn't processed, incorrectly. There's no rush on high value or sinkhole risk. We will show you how to confirm where, the average processing certain types of requests in the next couple slides here. When you should consider to contact me and George or your agency field manager. Unresolved urgent inquiries can be, but are not limited to any urgent requests to underwriting or the CCC that's gone through the above mentioned requirements. They're still not resolved. Any my agency requests that have been been resolved timely. AOR transfers, book of business transfers, commission inquiries, renewals, things like that, that you've just not been able to get any kind of resolution to. If you're looking for a training resource or you're unable to locate that, if you receive any information from anywhere within Citizens that you find contradictory or that there's a discrepancy with it, underwriting issues, if you're unable to resolve a claim inquiry and you need additional support, if you got any intelligence within the insurance industry that you would like Citizens to know about, we are always on receive for those types of things. And I, routinely will ask, for a market intel, make sure my agents, reach back out to me, let me know what's happening in the market. If you're having difficulty with, carriers, all of a sudden, not writing in certain markets, or you're not able to do this, you're getting non-renewal notices, anything that type of market turbulence, we want to know about it. Next slide. Now we've shared some of this information on using those resources and knowing what it is appropriate to escalate. Did you know that you can track the processing times for some of the biggest requests? Here's where you can find them. Click on the personal link for the personal lines page and choose the processing time link on the left-hand side of the link. That it'll show the processing times is embedded in the next text up to the right of the hand side of the slide here. When you click on it, another screen is going to pop up and it'll open up with a chart. This file will show you the personal lines processing times by activity type. So you'll be able to identify the number of open requests we currently have in queue, what our time service commitment is to process these requests within, as well as what the average time to process is currently for us. Please note that the time services and average time to process are both in business days. So let's take a look at an example here. For this example, we submitted a request to cancel a policy for an insured. It's been a couple of days. We want to check and see how long Citizens is taking to process the cancellation. We can see from this chart, we have about 300 open requests right now that they're working in the order we receive them. Our time service commitment is 5 business days, meaning we try to work all cancellations within 5 business days from receipt. And we can also see that on average right now, we're taking about 4 business days to process a cancellation request. Now, this guidance is updated every week on Wednesday. And we're at the question stage.
Okay, Jim, there are a couple additional questions in here. One question was regarding the roof. And I think you just kind of covered this on the last slide, but it was about if the policy has to be submitted unbound, what will be the expected turnaround time? And I think that you just covered that in showing that processing timeframes are posted on our website.
Right.
And then the other question we had was actually regarding UPC. It has to do with what is the standard threshold for customers with past claims, and the Citizens is opening zip codes. But what is the count now due to the UPC leaving the Florida market?
You want to take that one, Carl?
I would like to. I just like a clarification on the question. It was a little. Could you read it out again, Christiana? Maybe I'll try to catch the question.
Yes. What is the threshold for customers with past claims? And is Citizens opening more zip codes? What is the count now due to the UPC leaving Florida?
Okay, well, let me take it in reverse order. Our policy count right now at Citizens is about 1.2 million policies. That's up from about 400,000 and change in 2017. So is Citizens growing? You bet. There was around 50,000 policies in the UPC situation that were not made slide offers, and those 50,000 folks are out in the marketplace right now. Not at liberty to report how much of that has come to Citizens until we're completely through the UPC intake date, which runs through 4/17 or 4/19, but we are getting some UPC business. And then I think the third one was opening zip codes. Citizens is all the zip codes at Citizens are open subject to eligibility, both price eligibility at point of sale and condition of property, which is critically important. Those of you that are involved in UPC, we just issued guidance on that yesterday, where we've updated our stance on homes with existing damage. That was sent out in writing yesterday. If you have any questions, please let us know. But hopefully that addressed the UPC question.
Yep.
There's another question on the roof requirements. It is a little confusing. Where can we find what you showed for reference?
I would say this document. I think we're planning on sharing this with Tom, and this is a resource for everybody. Along with Christiane, I believe we probably have some FAQs and other things to support the new roof rules. Correct?
Yes, we will be sharing the presentation with Tom to share with the group, but there is also a recorded webinar on our website and other resources that you'll be able to find in our training section of our website.
Great.
Yep.
And Christine, I think we're getting a question on the claim threshold. I don't want to freestyle that, Nelson. We do have a claim threshold for eligibility for HO3 and other policy forms. It would be best for us just to send an email in, Nelson, and we'll get you the claim thresholds or point you to the right reference documents that will tell you what our claim threshold is for different policy forms. But we do have one. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I think, Christiane, are we clean on the questions?
We
I
are,
think
we
gotten
are
back
clean,
on the
Carl.
questions.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to be responding to a few of you individually due to the complexity of your question. We are committed to that. Tom, great job by Jim and Christiane and George. And Tom, we so appreciate the partnership and the ability to connect with your great members. We look forward to doing this again next quarter. Please keep your eyes open for the citizens webinars that we run regularly. And as special events occur, we'll reserve the right to bring agents in on our platform. But we do appreciate getting with you guys separately so we can have a more meaningful conversation directed to your members. So Tom, I'll turn it back to you for closing.
Great. Thank you very much, Carl. Again, your team did a great job. We appreciate that. Yes, our next partnership with citizens on these update webinars will be in July. So look for messaging regarding that. Let me just re-emphasize what Christiane just said, that if you would like a copy of the slide deck that you've seen during this presentation today, she's going to forward that on over to me here by email. And we'll also send you the YouTube link to this webinar. We'll edit out all the stuff up front, but we'll send you that link as well. Please enter your email address in the chat feature now. Please enter your email address in the chat feature now. We're going to keep the platform open for just a few moments here. We're not going anywhere for a few minutes, so give you time to do that. If you'd like to have the slide deck and the link to the webinar, it'll be a YouTube link. It takes us a day or two to make that conversion from this format to the YouTube format, but we'll send it to you certainly by the end of business tomorrow. If you'd like either of those or both, please go ahead and just enter your email address now. I know you had to enter it when you registered, but we only send it out to those folks who request this information. So go ahead and do that now. On the call today, we actually had Tom Cothran. He's Farm Bureau General Manager in Marion County, which is Ocala. And Tom is actually our NAFA Florida incoming national president. And Tom, it's nice to have you and your folks there at Farm Bureau in Ocala on the call today. And we appreciate you doing that. Appreciate all of you being on the call today. CC, I think that's about it for us. We're going to leave the platform open, but in terms of the folks at Citizens there, are there any more thoughts or comments before we begin to close this down?
Well, I think we're good from a Q&A standpoint. Thank you.
Very good. Again, if you'll email me that slide deck, we'll have it here and we can get it out to everybody.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to hang on just for a moment here. Gene Bryant, nice to have you on there in Jacksonville. Nice to see you. Rick Zeitler, thank you so much for being on. Thank you for your comments. We appreciate you as well. All of you are NAFA Florida members. Nice to have you on. And those of you who are not members, please consider joining the association. We'd love to have you. This is just one of the member benefits. We don't charge for these citizens webinars. They're free to you. And we want to be able to continue to do these sort of things. So we need everybody being a member of NAFA and NAFA Florida as best you can. We'd love to have you. So again, we're going to keep it open just for a few more minutes here. A lot of you are dropping in your email addresses. Thank you. I have a few more coming in. Once you've done that, you're free to go. Your time here is done as far as the citizens portion is concerned. Feel free to drop off if unless you have other questions for me, so on and so forth. We're just going to keep it open to wait for these email addresses. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate the comment. All right. All right, looks like that's just about it. Oh, there's another one. Thanks everyone for being on. Again, we appreciate your time this morning. Okay, George, CC, James, thank you all so much this morning. We appreciate it. And I think that's going to about do it. I think everyone who's wanting to enter their email address has done so. That actually gets dropped into the printed version of the chat feature that I'll receive when we end the webinar here into Zoom. So, all right, everyone, thank you so much. We're going to end the webinar now, and you folks have a good day out there, and happy selling out there. Thanks very much. Bye-bye now.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. Take care.
Thank you.